what is the church's understanding? Why is the church saying that we are not allowed to use contraception? We're told in our schools to have safe sex. We're constantly emphasized to, like, they hand out condoms now in schools. Why does the Catholic Church teach against this?
Well, that's because the church has a teaching on what sex is. Sex is not just recreational, it's not just biological, but that sex, the meaning of sex, is something so much deeper. When a husband and wife get married in the church, we make promises. We say, I promise to love you freely, totally, faithfully, and fruitfully. These are the marks of what Pope Paul VI in Humanae Vitae calls, these are the marks of conjugal love. Conjugal love is basically the husband and wife, the love between the husband and wife. And we get this from the cross, actually, how Christ loves us. It says in Scripture that we can only love because God loved us first. So this free, total, faithful, fruitful, these are the characteristics of conjugal love. And in fact, Pope John Paul, in his Theology of the Body, he says, this is the language of the body in sex. This is, our bodies proclaim this language. I am loving you freely, totally, faithfully, fruitfully. And in fact, when a couple makes these vows on their wedding day, they're saying with their words, but when a husband and wife have sex, they're actually making these vows flesh. So every time a husband and wife have sex, they're actually renewing their wedding vows. And Pope John Paul said, so when people have sex outside of marriage, they're actually lying with their bodies. They're not telling the truth with their bodies, because the language of the truth of the language of sex is free, total, faithful, fruitful. So he says, outside of that, we are lying with our bodies because we're making a promise that we didn't ever make with our mouths. So as Catholics, we believe that sex has a deep meaning. It's not just recreational, biological, but that sex is for procreation and the unity and the bonding of spouses. So, and we can never separate those two. When we look at the married couple in Ephesians chapter 5, it says that a husband and a wife, it's basically a sign of Christ and the church. Marriage is a sign of Christ and church. The husband and wife become one flesh. Even St. Paul in Corinthians chapter 6, he said that when you join yourself to a prostitute, you're literally becoming one body, one flesh with this person. So unfortunately, our culture, the problem, they don't know about contraception because they don't even know what the purpose and meaning of sex is. That the purpose of sex, right? Like even just biologically, it makes sense that the purpose of sex is to procreate, right? But you literally say that and people think like, no, it's not. It's like, that's the biological purpose. And when people get pregnant and they're having a lot of sex, they're like, what went wrong? It's like, nothing went wrong. Actually, something went very right? Is that you were doing the one thing that actually leads to children. So the reason why contraception is a grave evil, in fact, that's what it's an intrinsic evil, is because if the language of sex is to love freely, totally, faithfully, fruitfully, in the language of contraception is, I'm not giving myself to you totally, and I'm not loving you totally. Basically, I want you, but I don't want the reproductive parts of you. Like, I really don't want all of you. So that's essentially, the church says each and every act of sex must be open to the transmission of life. That's what Pope Paul VI said in Humanae Vitae. And it would be like if we said, well, really, does each and every act have to be, not contracepted, open to life? And be like, well, does each and every act of sex have to be with my spouse? Like, couldn't I do it with someone else? Like, if we say that no to like the faithful part, then, again, we're saying like, no, this vow doesn't matter. But yes, to be open to life, every single act, each and every act has to be open to the transmission of life. So that's why the church believes this is an intrinsic evil, is because we are essentially denying the language of the body, of how we were created. And in fact, instead of becoming more integrated as human persons, when we use contraception, it disintegrates us as persons. So it's kind of a short, long answer.